And I talked about in between home during my mother's illness. Ms. Tubles is aware that I am a domestic violence victim, survivor, and victor because I had speaking engagements that I was invited to. She's currently employed at the Wavy Domestic Violence Shelter, as she indicates on her affidavit for the invalid protection order. I have had no contact with Ms. Tubal since her release. Ms. Tubal indicates she resides in Blackhawk and is employed in Rapid City. Ms. Tubal waits 240 days to file her complaint alleging workplace violence. As stated, the office was left with Ms. Tubals to operate and supervise the staff. In January 2019, I was contacted by the comptroller. The letter to the treasurer was received on February 6th. Her complaints do not meet the elements required for workplace violence, sexual harassment. It doesn't meet Article 8, removal of officers. There's no constitutional complaint in her complaint. The same thing on November 8th, the chief judge grants a protection order against me. The court hearing was scheduled for November 21st, 2019 at 2:30. I'm not a family or household member of Ms. Tubal's, no household relationship. We are not current or former spouses. We have not dated or dating. We have not engaged in sexual relationships. We are not married by Western culture or tradition. We don't have a child in common. Neither I or Ms. Tubal meet the definition standard in the OST Domestic Violence Code. This was an attempt to settle administrative and personnel dispute and actually constitutes as criminal contempt of court. The case was dismissed on November 21st, 2019. I was unlawfully restrained from November 8th through November 21st with an invalid order. It didn't meet domestic violence protocol. The wrongful order was initiated by a former judge who is an advocate for victim services and identified himself as representing both complainants. Ms. Tubals waited 243 days to grieve her complaint. She was an at-will employee. She was released for cause. She retaliated by filing an invalid protection order. I request that these complaints be dismissed with prejudice and I be returned to my position as the Vice President's office. Complaint number 4, Ms. Youngman. There were meetings held with each and every administrative issue addressed in this complaint. There was a meeting. She was provided the opportunity to seek solutions, and she failed to. There were no grievances filed with me, no written complaints, no complaints on workplace violence. Ms. Youngman is an advocate, a tribal attorney for the Oglala Sioux tribe and is familiar with the laws. She didn't file a complaint with Human Resources. A fundamental portion of law is due process. The media sites.
You've already brought up a lot of these with regard to the first complaint. Can we just address, because the council understands all of your issues with regard to due process and all of that, can you please just address the complaints that are in number 4 so that we can hear your response to those specific complaints and not the general information that you've already covered previously?
Yes, Your Honor. Okay, she talks about posting her position on Facebook and that people started calling in right away. And I heard from Lorna's mother. Lorna resigned voluntarily. She didn't tell me there was any problems. She brought up a lot of stuff that Lorna had said, which I feel is hearsay, because I feel Lorna should have been here to address these things if there was. She talks about everything I said in the meetings with the attendance problems. She talks about the career day at Little One. Those are things that she scheduled. And there was a problem with that one too. She talks about the diapers. There's a sign-in sheet for the diapers. There's a sign-in sheet for the transit ride. There's a sign-in sheet for their coats. Anything that we get, there is a sign-in sheet. So you can tell which district and who actually received these items. And I don't handle them because of the appearance of impropriety. I'm a former judge. The majority of the things that are in her complaint are things that we already addressed in the meetings that I had with her. I took down her notes so I can answer to her questions. She talks about the donations. And once again, I say there's only 3 people that we get donations from. And I have been working with teepee raisers for approximately 3 years. But I recently cut off that agreement because I have too many people coming in saying that they didn't get the work done that they said they did. She claims there was corrupt conduct. There was no corrupt conduct. And had I known that you wanted to see those documents, I could have brought those documents. There's folders, binders of sign-in sheets for all the donations. I consider myself a professional. And just like you here in this circle, there's things that we debate on. There's things that we disagree on. But when we're done with that argument, we still have respect for one another. I treated them with respect. But when you're being ignored, when all you're trying to do is say, please do your job. All I could resort to was meetings. There's no other way. So in closing, Tribal Council, I document everything. When I first came into office, I read this whole Constitution. Anything that comes up, I read. I'm constantly going to the Secretary's office to get the ordinances. Am I able to do this? What can I do? I adhere to that financial management manual. I only received 2 donations, monetary, and they were not monetary. One was a check last administration, one was a check this administration. And that check last administration was, I believe, 300 too. And what the treasurer did was he just vouched it to Walmart. So I've never received no kind of monetary donations. The other thing is I do a monthly radio show. The tribe doesn't pay that. I don't have a budget in my account to do that. It's people that I pray with that said they would do that for me because that's my contact with the people. The donations that come in with teepee raisers, I don't see them. He'll come in with a sign-in sheet. I'll give you an example. The church needed a refrigerator in Kyle. I contacted Dave. He took it directly to them and installed it for them. There isn't anything wrong with that. It's help that the people need. There was a woman in Slim Buttes. HIP went out to look at her house. They didn't have the parts to fix her plumbing. I called TP Racers. They went out there and fixed it. It was minor. I didn't pay for any of that. They donated the items to the people. And as the vice president, I have done nothing. I have not committed any offenses to come before you to be impeached. These women were released because of performance. And today, the decision is ultimately yours. It is up to you to decide if it's within the Constitution. And in my opinion, I have done no wrong. Is there any questions, Tribal Council? Ms. Whitehorse.
I'll call on people, thank you. Ms. Whitehorse.
You never responded to any of the sexual harassment claims nor the text messages.
The text messages, I didn't send those. Normally when you send a text message, my number or my name or whatever she puts in there will pop up. I didn't have this conversation with her. My name isn't anywhere on this document. The same thing with the others. That's why I wanted them to have their own cell phone from the department.
So I guess my follow-up to that is, there's more than one claim. In fact, all three have claimed about the text messages and sexual harassment. So are you saying those are all lies?
I've never sent them any kind of messages like that. There were times if I'm on travel, I'll be looking for my travel checks. And no, I did not send them any texts. You could look at my phone.
So you've never made any inappropriate comments to any of these women?
Never,
None whatsoever?
never.
Councilman Little Whiteman.
Good afternoon. I got two questions. Okay, the first one, as a supervisor, have you set up any trainings for your employees that, because you were talking about the work performance?
I assigned Santana to do that, Miss Youngman. It's on my phone too. I sent her a copy of the flyer. I asked her, it was two weeks before Miss DeSursa's resignation. I sent her a copy of the flyer, and I asked them because they do have money in their travel budget to attend, and I asked them to attend that. But she never did schedule it.
My second question is this the first time you've been in front of council for violence in the workplace or bullying in the workplace?
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Little Hawk Weston?
Thank you. I have some numerous questions, I guess, Vice President. And I'm just kind of jotting down some things as you were talking. But, you know, as the Vice President, you understand the Oglala Sioux Tribe's Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual.
I do.
So you also are aware that political appointees are not governed under the Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual.
I'm aware.
The reason why I ask that is you keep saying HR didn't know about this. HR did not know about this. And I was just reading the letter from Michelle Porbear, where she does cite that ordinance 18-22, where they are basically at-will employees. So, you know, I really feel for those at-will employees, because we have them in our chartered organizations sometimes where they have no grievance process. So at any time, if I don't either think that you are not doing a good job, or maybe you were doing a good job, but maybe I don't like you, then I'm going to get rid of you. And I could do it using at will. That has happened many times. And sitting here as one of the tribal leaders, we've experienced that with chartered programs doing that. But we ourselves, the Oglala Sioux Tribe has that policy. So they're not governed under HR. So they should have never went to HR because they have no grievance process. So I just wanted to ask you that question. Yeah.
Okay, I worked as a human resource background investigator, and there is anybody that cites any kind of criminal activity, any kind of harassment, any kind of abuse of any kind, they do go to HR for documentation purposes. And what HR does is she'll refer, and I've seen this done before, she'll refer those people to the Attorney General office by written form. That's why I said that. That's standard for any human resource personnel department. It's standard.
My second question is, you know, I used to be a director of 2 programs, tribal programs, and I supervised probably 32 employees under myself before I became tribal council. And so I understand what it means to be a supervisor and how you manage your staff, how you manage your office. And part of it is providing training to your staff, but you yourself have to be a part of that in orientating your staff as to how things should run in your program or in your office. And I'm like, Bo, Mr. Little White Man, I want to ask you, what types of training did you offer to them? I would like to see a list of trainings that you said, I would like for you to go to this training, that training, and this training. To me, I believe that when you oversee an office, you need to be able to provide that to your staff so that they themselves learn about the process of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And if they do not have that, then you're going to get frustrated like you have been doing here, the way you're talking, is that you are frustrated because they were not getting things done the way you wanted them to do it. So I just wanted to ask you that. What types of training did you offer to them?
I offered administrative assistant and executive secretary assistant training, and that information is on my work cell phone for documentation purposes, because I did take a picture of the training center and her the contact information that Miss Youngman could register them for. And I did tell her that there is money in the budget for them to attend, but she didn't apply.
Okay. My third question is, you talked about travel. And I know you've come in
Ms.
front of.
Weston, before you get to your question, can I follow
Okay.
up on that one
Yeah.
question? So you directed an employee who you said was not doing her job to get her own training? Is that
Mm-hmm.
what you just said?
If you look at the job description, she does all the admin assistant does all the administrative functions. So I sent her the flyer, because I looked for one, I sent her the flyer, and I asked her if she could follow up, contact that department and register for them and apply for it, and there is money in the account to do that.
So the reason she needed training is because she wasn't doing her job properly,
Yeah.
but then you assigned her to do a job to get herself training.
No, I
Is that
wanted,
right?
Yeah, that's what you just said. That's what you just said. That's why there's a two-part question here. Along the same lines of what I asked you, this training is also comes to my just listening is that these women never even had time to have training. They were constantly being told to do this, to do that, to get that done. So that's why I'm trying to ask you, whereabouts in their daily 8 to 4:30 job do they have time to even go to a training? Besides going to the events or setting up events in different districts. When time did you offer them any type of training? And second question is, you mentioned one of them, you said, do my travel with Dakota Travel. You know, within the Oglala Sioux Tribe's travel process, we have a travel office clerk. She does all of our travel. She does your travel too. So your secretary or your administrative assistant should have been working with our travel office and saying, could you do Ms. Black's travel? You understand that? You've been in that office 2 years, now you're on their second term now.
I'm waiting for you to.
Okay, that's
so I
my
can
question
respond.
to you.
Okay, to the first question, I did send Miss Tubles to training in Las Vegas for secretarial training. All the secretaries went from the Oglala Sioux Tribe under the Weston and Black administration, and she did attend that. In addition to that, I also sent them they offered secretarial training in Sharps under Thunder Valley. I sent them to that, and customer service training too. So and that was free training, so I sent them to that training too. So they did attend training. Now this one that I found it while I was en route to South Bend. I started looking for training for them. Like I told you, I tried everything to try to work with them. Training was one of them. And I asked her to contact them to see if they could register them. And going back to the travel, Sammy doesn't do our travel. She makes us do our own. And it's been like that for 2 terms now. So she doesn't do my travel. She has us complete the paperwork.
Okay. Fourth question. You also talked about a November 21st case was dismissed. Do you have a copy of that order that the case was dismissed on the protection order from the chief judge?
I wasn't served with it yet. It was
But
dismissed on the bench, and they told me we'll get the order at least 5 to 7 days.
Okay, I think that that's one thing I think we need to see, that it was dismissed. I think the other last thing I wanted to say is, looking back at your background, all of your background is law enforcement. You know, you have a really lengthy background on different, experiences working within the law enforcement field. And, I want to just say something because I see it with military people. And I see it with my husband because, being a veteran, he wants everything done a certain way. And I can say that by veterans, pointing at veterans and how they want things done. Be on time, get this done, want that done. I mean, that's just the way veterans are really, trained to think that way. And so when looking back at your background, you were military, you were law enforcement, judicial. So I really feel that in the job that you're in today, working with our oyate, our people, I think it makes it hard for people to adjust to just working in that environment, rather than treating them like they're in a military field. Maybe Ms. Tubals can maybe relate to what I'm trying to say, because I see that about veterans. I mean, they're very precise about how they want things done. And you kind of relate to that, Ms. Black? I mean, you're a veteran. Do you see yourself in sometimes maybe that's how you're trying to supervise your employees?
No. Actually, I try to work with them because it isn't my office. It belongs to the people. And everything that we do is for the people. It's not about me. It's not about those employees. Everything that we do is for the people. So I don't look at it as it's my office. It's a team approach. It's a team approach. The employees that come in, and what we're doing is we're helping the people in various, in the vice president's office, we help with everything, maybe 50 to 60 things. And if the people were allowed to come in here to testify, and you can hear from them of the things that I have done. And I don't feel that I'm precise or concise, because I also walk amongst the people. I'm constantly at events, and I actually conduct myself respectfully.
Last question is, I really want to say today that, you talked about your travel that was outstanding, but you always came in front of the tribal council and said you really didn't use your travel. You never went to travel. And that outside entities always paid your travel. So why did you have so much outstanding travel?
No, I want to clarify that. That was from 2016, 2018. It wasn't outstanding travel. The point I was getting at is there were no travel reports that were done. It wasn't outstanding. I stayed within my budget last term, and I'm 3,000 under the original 25,000 that we have here. So I'm not over in my travel. These are just travel reports that were not submitted. And I don't know where the receipts are. I don't know where anything is regarding these. We tried to find them. We found a lot of the voided checks that were never turned in. So I probably have money left over in that account too for the checks that I never used. And some of them were large, but they were, what I usually do when I void them out is I'll cut the treasurer's name off and I'll put void on it. And there was a lot of checks in the office. So last administration, I was probably maybe 16,000. That's all I spent, because the rest were voided checks that should have went back in and didn't go back in.
Councilwoman Tapio.
Thank you. I guess my question relates to the 8 to 4:30. Are these positions 8 to 4:30, or are they in the evenings and things like that?
To my understanding, they're salaried because they get a phone with the position. Might be a
So what does
question
that
for
mean
the-
to you?
To me, it'd be the same as us, because we are salaried employees. So if a person calls me and needing, and it happens, they call at 10 at night, I still respond.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Yellowhawk.
My question is, according to the Constitution, you've always mentioned that all the responsibility that you have is to take the place of the president when his absence. How can the people hold you accountable for vice chairman if you have no responsibilities per the Constitution? And I have other questions if you would answer that.
Councilman Yellowhawk, that, it says it right in the Constitution, so I've never been given any other document that says I have any other duties. And it's always been that way for the past few terms. But if you look at the Constitution under the Vice President's responsibility, that's all that's on there.
So you work at will for yourself?
No, I work 8 to 4:30 and then some.
Okay, and do you have a regular schedule that the rest of the tribal council is aware of?
Yes, I do. It's 8 to 4:30 like everybody else, and there's times that I stay occasionally, and then just like you, I attend meetings too. So if I work the 8 to 4:30, and there's times if I'm at meetings, I don't get home till 10 or 11 at night.
But yet you state that you have no job description, but yet be there in the office.
Yes, I am accessible to the people because I feel that's what I and the president do, as in those two key positions. But it doesn't state, I can't add anything else in there, Councilman Yellowhawk. It's in the Constitution, though.
It's in the Constitution that you're not doing anything except for filling in for the president in his absence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Mills?
I have several clarification, just so for me, for record. So the two lists of text messages that you did receive today, these ones here, and just to clarify from Cora's question, you said you did not
No,
write those.
no.
Okay. And then the other thing I have, so the 1,500 wire transfer that Ms. Toobles made reference to, that she had opened up an account, took out cash, and then turned it over to you, wire transfer, but she said she got cash. You said you never don't even know what they're talking about, correct?
No, I don't.
Okay, and then another question I have is it possible that we can get from the treasurer, because there's mention in emails of a $300 check, and then that was turned over to the treasurer from the vice president's office, and then I think another 300 check from last administration. And is there can we get something from the treasurer saying that those checks were turned in from the vice president's office, 300, whatever? I mean, I ask that because to clarify what is stated and what's being stated here, because that can be signs of misconduct, malfeasance. So I think we need that documentation from the treasurer showing that was turned in, those checks. Would that be possible?
Madam Secretary, if you could contact my office, there should be a file on it. Contact the administrative assistant, because we keep a file on everything like that. So when it's turned into the revenue department, we also keep a copy of the revenue sheet, turning in the 300, and then we also turn in the receipts as to what was purchased.
Okay, thank you for that. But I also, this was a conversation too regarding the financial manual, how to keep better track of this, and even as a tribe when we get donations like that and seeing that breakdown. So I asked that for that. And then the last question I have is, you speak of an MOA with the transit, that the arrangement you had prior administration, you had an MOA with the transit service about how that would look. And then we have a bill that's sitting here, 2,700 and something. How exactly, so if you were saying that was done through, people that said they would donate it to it, did people just donate directly to transit? And then it was no kind of turnover of stuff for you? And then would the treasurer be able to show those kind of accounts of, so if somebody said, I want to donate $50 to the project that Miss Black has for the transit, then the treasurer should be able to say, okay, somebody donated $50 last month for this transit bill. Can you kind of explain that a little bit, the memorandum, what that was supposed to look like?
Absolutely. It was just a memorandum that, that I gave to the treasurer and also the transit director. And what it says in there is that people will donate directly to the transit, make donations for the rides for the people. And I wasn't aware that it was that high because nobody showed me the documents. And secondly, the last payment I think Dave Ventimiglia from TP Razors had made a payment of maybe 800, I think it was. And then there was another, her name is Kara from Denver. She donated the prom dresses. She was gonna cover, I think, the majority of it because she received a grant for MMIW. So I don't touch the donations at all. They go directly to transit. And that was the agreement I made with the director, that it would go directly to them.
I did send a text message to Mason requesting for the memorandum that Ms. Black stated that she presented to him, and he said he hasn't received it, and he would like a copy from you.
It was last administration, so I'll see if my staff can find it. It was probably in 2016.
Councilman Jumping Eagle.
So my question is, when one of the ladies stated earlier that when she got hired in your office, the office staff had to gave her tips on how not to make you mad. Why would they say that?
I don't know. I really don't know. When I come in the office, most of the time I'm busy. So a lot of times, I think in one of the complaints, she says it herself that they don't really do anything. And I've seen that they don't do anything. And so most of the time when I'm in the office, my sign-in sheets can prove that. I'm constantly helping people. Constant. It's constant. It's a lot busier than President Bear Runner's office. And so I'm not sure why they would say that, because I don't have time to sit around and talk with them or anything, because the people keep me busy. But the sign-in sheets can indicate that too.
Councilwoman Bear Killer.
Okay, I guess you didn't really answer yes or no on the question that was brought up, that your employees are political, they're at will, and yet you're saying that they have, nobody went to HR and nobody went to property or the documents you gave us. You know, you're clarifying that you're saying they didn't go to HR, but if they're at will, the message as a vice president of the Gulf Sioux tribe, it seems like it's not really clear on that. And during your term as vice president, how many people have you hired and have you terminated? Just numbers. And my last one is what she's asking for was the memo to the treasurer, because I sit on finance and I have never seen any document on this transit issue. And those agreements that you made outside of as vice president, but financial management says how donations come in, how they're logged, and so forth for all of us. We have a Gmail letter here stating that there was, you were a speaker somewhere and you were given a stipend. You were given all the stipends for that event. And if you're putting in a TA to go to these places and getting stipends, that's double dipping. But on the other hand, and then you're saying, I don't ask people for money, I don't ask for nothing. And yet you're saying that you don't solicit, but you are asking people to donate directly to the transit. And I guess when we first heard of this transit deal, this MOU or whatever you made, there's no documentation for that. So how many of those donations went there? because they're not there. That should have been reported by the director of transit. And then my last question is, there is a lot of issues within our, the complainants, and I really feel like you avoided majority of those issues on there. But, again, educating us on our role and our duty and this and that, that's fine, but I think the imperative of who you hire, how you hire them, that's you. But at the same time, the terminations and the way you're terminating people from your office, it's still saying, you're saying one thing, but then you're saying another thing. I just think that there's all the way through your presentation is that you're saying one thing, but and then also saying another thing. So I feel like me myself, you didn't address the complaints, and we all know about the Constitution and the regulatory of this, but I just feel like you need to have your documents on these memos that you're saying, you showed the HR one, you showed the Mason one, and Mason's memo saying he never got any agreements from anybody. So just going out and all these extra activities that you took on a 24/7, I feel like you're elected, we're 24/7, but the employees are not 24/7. And they're only paid 8 to 4:30 unless you're paying them overtime at a time and a half for all these services. And also the personal stuff they did for you. Looking at the complaints about the dry cleaning and the...
Can I answer some of those questions before you continue? Okay, going back to...
Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm in control here. Finish your statement, please.
So I guess all these personal stuff that you have your staff running around doing for you, after hours, 10 o'clock at night, those kind of stuff, are you paying for those? And then they're saying their mileage was not paid, and they did a lot of delivering from Naha, and they didn't get paid their mileage, neither your employee and the family members. And I guess it's just the power, I think, in your office and that abuse that's going on. And I don't hear any part of where you're answering the complaint, but you went all the way around it. But that's my questions. And
Okay, so that's a lot of questions. So if you can answer what you can recall, and then we'll swing back around to make sure you've covered all of them.
Okay, so beginning with your Naha and the TA, there's only one place that we pick up Naha, and that's in Rapid City. So they do get a TA to go there, and they do bring them back. That's it. Like I said, it's food, it's shampoo, and occasionally Pampers. So those TAs are covered. There's only one travel that I requested for Miss Youngman to do, which was to get the pictures. And I asked them to split it up, and we do a mileage sheet monthly, and I told them to add it in their monthly mileage sheet and then process it in. So I'm not sure if she got compensated. And then secondly, when you're going back to the memo for the transit, when that first began, I did a memo to Mason, and I'm positive it's in my office. And there was a memo also to the transit director. That's probably in my office too. And in that memo, it also explains in there that there are people that I pray with that make donations directly to transit. So I don't touch any of that money. And secondly, I want to respond to this 1,500. I remember this. And this has to do with my mom. And it was a group of people that I pray with, and I can get a memorandum from them to explain that. And it was in regards to my mother. But, and if you look at the phone number, it didn't go to her. I picked it up. And then going back to what were your other questions? You had like 8 of them.
One of them was how many employees have you had and terminated or have left the job since 2016 when you became vice president?
So in 2016, I would say 3. 2016, 2018.
So
would be
from
3.
2016, 2018, you had 3 employees that were either terminated or left the position?
Yes.
And from
And
2008?
then from 2018 to 2000 now, 19, be 3.
Well, we've heard of 3 today and then another in Lorna, so that's 4.
Yes.
So you only said 3, so you were mistaken. There was actually 4 in 19?
In 2019, this year? Oh, no, there's one more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lorna?
she resigned.
So 4? Before I move on to the next, the phone number that you see on this sheet that was just handed to you, is that your personal cell phone? I don't want you to read it out loud because I don't need everybody in Keelyland to know your personal cell phone number, but is that your personal cell phone number? It is. Okay, and on the second page, it says the transaction details that the receiver of that was Pt2of2. Is that correct?
I'll have to go back and look at my records. I think I have the receipt for this.
Okay, so you're disputing that Dewana was the receiver of this and that you actually received it?
I can't remember.
Okay.
But I do have the receipt, so I'll look for it.
Okay. Councilwoman Bearkiller, were there any other questions that you felt needed answered that she did not?
The one on the personal, the dry cleaning and the personal stuff they had to do for her, like after hours.
Can you address that, please?
The reason why I didn't address that, because I never did have them pick up a dry cleaner for me.
Did you have them run any of your personal errands for you, whether it be transporting grandchildren? Please let me finish. Whether it be transporting grandchildren or doing anything for you of a personal nature?
Yes, to pick up my grandkids, because I had a line of people at the door, and that was on 2 occasions. And I also gave them a $20 gas bill. For their gas, I gave them $20 to do that for me.
And were they doing that on Oglala Sioux time, meaning they were being paid by the tribe for the time to run your personal errands?
Yeah, I gave them money for gas, yes.
Okay, that wasn't the question. The question was, were they doing it on the time that they were being paid by the tribe to do tribal work?
At 4 o'clock, yes.
It's either a yes or no answer.
Yes.
On my last question on this, so this money that came in was donated to the tribe for your mom?
No, it was donated to my mom.
So, okay, that's what because it was for the tribe and it's to pay the transit or whatever came in, paid transit, but this one didn't pay transit, but it was a donation to the tribe for your mom, right?
If it's from Canada, yes, but I don't see where it's from, where it originates. But it wasn't for transit, no. And if I recall, I think what happened was I didn't have my ID with me, is how that happened. I can't remember.
Councilman Goodcrow.
Thank you. I just have several questions. One of them is that I did work as a political employee under President Sioux for 4 terms back in the 90s, and including 2001 or 2000, 2002 to 2010, 12, and 14 to 16. During those times, we always had good working relationship with John with the employees. If there's any problems, we would seem to have, we'll be able to work it out, work together and resolve issues immediately. And so nobody ever thought of terminating anyone. I know there's one situation, but that was just one. But other than that, during those 4 terms, which is 8 years, I think we worked pretty well as a team that in the president's office, and we seem to, I'm going to reiterate this, that we all work well together and as a team. But one of the things I was going to ask her, but Lydia already mentioned that portion, where how many employees did you have the first 2 years, and this last year I think you seem to have 5 or 6 from you earlier you said 3, but we have one in Pork Pine that worked for a while, then not working anymore. And so those are some situations that there seems to be a problem, I would think, and some with our 3 complaints, and you have a bully situation where they probably wouldn't want to address issues with you while you're present. And that's what I'm kind of gathering to myself, what I hear, just to me. So that seems to be the case on what's going on. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's from listening from earlier and just weighing out several factors and so forth. So that's just one of them. The other one is you said that you do leave a paper trail, right?
Yes.
And all the monies that you receive should be going to Mason, right?
I don't receive any money.
Okay. So this $1,000 is it for the tribe? Because I thought that was originally for the transit, which was mentioned earlier, the $1,500 altogether, $500, and then $1,000 that Duana, Ms. Tubos received.
It doesn't state anything on here, and I recall around that time, my mother was going back and forth between Sioux Falls and stuff like that, so the prayer group that I have in Canada did send some to help her. I don't think this was for the transit. I don't work with anybody in Canada regarding my transit. The majority of people that donate to the transit is from Denver. And there's only 2 people, TP Razors, and her name is Kara.
Okay. I had more questions, but they were all asked already, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dillon.
My questions are going to be just yes or no. Okay. When you were a tribal judge, were you ever brought before the tribal council?
Yes.
Was you removed from office by the council?
Yes.
Okay. My next one is, you stated you don't solicit money, yet you said you asked your prayer group for money. So is that soliciting money, yes or no?
I looked at it as donation to the transit.
But it is soliciting money, that's what I'm getting at, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Yellowhawk.
I think one of my questions were answered. My question was simply that number of employees you have gone through since you've been in office, and I think you've answered that already. Also, my follow-up question is, there's allegation of sexual harassment. Do we have access to all the emails on your cell phones?
Just so that you are aware, I have received, the complainants have reprinted off those Facebook messages and text messages that show who they're from. And we were gonna wait for the rebuttal when they come back up to speak before we hand those out.
Okay, thank you.
Also, we have a message from HR. Yes. From HR in 2018, panned out four employees. One of the four was panned out twice, and in 2019, 9 employees were panned out. And there's 2 current employees. Councilman Greenwald.
Thank you. I have about 3 questions. I'll just do one at a time so they're not confusing. So in Ms. Tubal's testimony, she was basically straight up on how she received this $1,500. It was done by a wire transfer and all this and that. And then you said that never happened. And then now you said you might be confused that there might have been. So you got these same ones, right? So it looked like you had already received $500. How did you receive that?
It was sent, because wire, you can only send, I think, 999 or something like that anyway, so they sent 2 separate ones. And if I recall this particular time, I don't think I had an ID, but I have to go back and look at my records and I can call them to find out what this was for exactly. But it was a group in Canada that sent this, and it was personal. It wasn't for employment related. It was during the time my mom was ill.
This 12/20/2017, does that line up with around the same time your mom was in the hospital? Okay, so it said you received the $500. How did you receive that?
I think in the same way. I can't remember. I don't know what the date is on this.
It says 12/20/2017 at 14:13 hours.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So is that around the time your mother was in the hospital that you were stating?
She's had cancer for at least a little over 2 years.
Yeah.
That she was terminal.
So how did you receive the $500? The first
It had to, I don't recall. I'll have to find out from them because I honestly don't remember.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking that is you saying that that you had her do this $1,000 because you didn't have an ID, but somehow you received $500 right around that time you received it. So I'm wondering how you received the $500, but you couldn't get the rest. You needed her to do it through her wiring system, through her account or whatever, however they did it. And if you don't remember, that's
I'll
fine.
have to go back and look at my records because I do keep files on these too at my home. So I have to go back and look at this to find out exactly what this is for.
Okay,
But it definitely was not work related. It wasn't, it was, I'm pretty sure it was for my mom.
Okay. You said it-
Before you move on, can I ask a question about that? If you look at the bottom text message, it says, "I thought I had the number on our folder, but didn't." What is our folder? And if it was a personal folder, would DeWanna be on your personal folder?
No, then I'm referencing a different one because this came in the United States. She was talking about Canada, so we're talking about different money order transactions. Let me find out from Dave. This might have been Dave Ventimiglia.
And see
But the
that-
one that I received is from Canada.
And see, that's why when we talk about following processes, that it's important to do that the treasurer's office receives all donations. We all know that. We sit in this circle, we all know that. It's not through DeWanna, it's not through your accounting, it's not through transit. All those donations need to come first to the treasurer so it's identified in our books. Then it gets put out to the proper places that it needs to go. just like you said, the treasurer gave you a check for $300 because that was the process that needed to go through. It came in this way and it came out that way. It was spent this way. So there's reasons for processes for people to follow. The second thing was, you said your staff was responsible for their mileage. Who is responsible to sign off and approve and verify that they went and did the mileage that you stated? Because they're saying you were holding off on it and you couldn't get it done because you didn't process it. So who approves of their mileage? What was the process?
So what I was told when I first came into office is if I'm not available, then anybody from the executive committee can sign those documents. And if you look at my calendar, I am really busy. So normally and they're responsible to the budget. They keep a cuff account of how much is in my budget. They complete the forms. They complete my travel forms. They complete the mileage sheets. And so if in my absence, I usually have them go to the fifth member or the president to sign off on those. And I feel like they're independent enough that they can keep track of that on their own, and there's supposed to be a cuff account for their travel line item and then my travel line item.
In your testimony or in what their statements were against you as far as the sexual harassment, the treatment that they received, that they felt that they were mistreated or whatever, you stated that you've never treated anybody bad, you never sexually harassed anybody, and yet the record shows that you've been through over 9 employees in your 2 terms. And at the same time, people in this circle right here, including the president, have been on the receiving end of you being very upset. So I know that you don't just go every day without ever being upset, or you might get a vein on your forehead because somebody didn't do what you told them to. So do you have anything to say about that? I mean, I know there's probably times you came in and something wasn't done and you got mad, and it just didn't end there. You had to say something, because if you're frustrated and you go over to the president's office and his staff is on the receiving end of you being frustrated and mad, the president's on the receiving end of you being frustrated and mad in the past. So how is it that anybody else around you could feel that, but you're saying you never felt that with your own staff in your office?
Because being a former supervisor, I hold meetings. We sit down and have a meeting and we talk about these things, and I want a solution from them, so I try to work with them in finding a solution. And I think with their complaints, I believe I didn't answer some of them because I feel like they're not true. I've never sent any kind of text messages, and I'm anxious to see the Facebook post too, because I've never ever propositioned anybody. Never. In my years working in law enforcement, all my employment, I've never brought my personal life into my work, ever. And so I would like to refute those or be given an opportunity to see those, because everybody knows that Facebook can be accessed too, and I want to know if I sent them. And I've never ever propositioned anybody.
Councilman Laysbad.
Thank you. Got a 2-part question, because on your resume, when you posted, it said military background. And upon military background completion, you have to go debriefing. And the second part is debriefing, like, what do you call it? PTSD or anger management. If you didn't go through these debriefing, do you have aggression within inside you that you're using on a daily basis against employees under you?
No, I don't have aggression in me at all. As a matter of fact, I exercise self-care. I go to Sweat Lodge every week. I started walking. There's things that I do to help myself too, because my role as the vice president, I am really, really busy. And it is frustrating when I don't get help from them. It is very, very frustrating. And the majority of these people that I released had to do with job performance. The other important factor is that people lie on their resumes. They say they can do something when they can't. They can't even turn the computer on. And it's frustrating. I don't have the time to sit down and type these reports. It's their job to do that. So I try to be a stickler with the job descriptions, and I try to hold them accountable for their responsibilities too. And that's where the meetings come in. And I always bring EAP into the meetings because I don't want to get accused of this.
You didn't answer my first question, debriefing. Did you get debrief from the military that causes you to be in a way where, because you have to be going to the communities, when they debrief you, they teach you to go back into the communities slowly to be with the communities. Did they debrief you?
Absolutely. I was 18 years old at the time, so it was many years ago.
Councilwoman Little Hawk Weston.
Thank you. You know, just looking back at the transaction, Darla, on December 20th, 2017, at 14:13, that is actually 2:13 in the afternoon. I mean, why, you said earlier when you were questioned about why your staff is doing personal errands for you during working hours, and are they being compensated by tribal time when they're doing these for you? And you said, well, you compensate them with giving them money, $20 for gas, whatever, when they run and do an errand for you, like when they went after your grandkids. My question is, this was on a personal time when they went after, when Dewana picked this $1,000 up? That was on behalf of your mother.
No, the one from my mother is from Canada. This one's from the United States, and if I'm not mistaken, I'll get a hold of TP Razors, because I think it's from TP Razors.
No,
I think this was for transit.
No, if you read the reference number, the receiver is United States. That's just what it's saying. So the United States got this transaction. So it came from an outside entity source. It could have been Canada. So that's why it says receiver was United States. So I'm just saying, I'm just kind of asking you that question. You said earlier when you were questioned about that, are you paying them during their working hours when they're doing your personal errands?
No.
So that was a personal errand
No,
that
I
they
don't
did for
think this,
you?
I need to research this, because there's more to this that I need to research.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Tyler.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. You know, you talked about the busyness of your office, and you also read from the Constitution what your role is. So my question, Darla, is why are you taking on so many extracurricular projects? Because I believe that the vice president, that office should be dictated by council for special projects, if I remember reading it. And so why do you have so many extracurricular activities within your office?
One, because when I came in, I said I would help the elders, and I would also help the homeless, and I would also help the children. So a lot of those activities surround like the career awareness, and then the people in Denver, they send electric heaters for the elders at certain times. Now, last term, President Weston and I worked together, so he would let me know when he's not going to be available. Then I would help him. Sometimes I would chair the meetings last term. This term, I have had limited contact with President Bear Runner, and he runs his own meetings. He's never asked me for help for anything. So as I stated before, I'm not going to sit there and get paid for not doing nothing but sit there. So I took on these other little projects for the people, and at no time did I ever get anything to gain for myself.
Just a quick comment there. You know, as I recall, the last 10 years, there have been many projects that have come up within committees that the tribe direly needed to address, and I always felt that that was the role of the vice president's office. And a good example of one are the nonprofits and the churches on the reservation. We've been trying to get a handle on that and so those are the kind of responsibilities that I feel that the vice president's office should be doing and that they should be delegated by this body. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, so on your presentation, you said that we're bonded by the Constitution and you read our oath, and what, don't you feel like you took the oath to uphold tribal laws and also you to uphold the Constitution, and you are aware of the impeachment process? Yes or no?
Yes.
So, you know, with that, you're saying, I need time to research, I need time to get this, I need time to get that. But you know what? Those complaints were specific and you had them because you redacted the complaints and you put it all over public media. So you knew what was in those complaints. So I think it would have been fair if you were ready today. But today, we're gonna make a decision whether you have your documents or not. And I just wanted that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. And to be fair, it was pointed out by Councilwoman Mills earlier that the $1,500, this is new information just today. That was not in the complaints that were filed. And one last thing, you wanted, Vice President Black, you wanted to see these Facebook messages and text messages because you've previously testified that you did not send them. And now we have been provided, looks like a Facebook that says Darla, and is that your photo on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so did you send these these messages on Facebook?
I don't recall ever sending these text messages. That's why I'm saying I want to see I have closed my my Facebook Messenger, and I want to go back and research them. This is the first time I've seen these. I want time to respond, and this is the first time with this one. This is back in 2017. I would like time to research this to see where it originated.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilwoman Mills.
Also, for the record, the transfer information that we just got today too also was not in any of the prior complaints.
Anything else? Did you have any witnesses that you would like to testify on your behalf?
There was one, but I don't see her here. She's a former employee, and she would attest to where, I can't speak for her, but what she was going to talk about was, I run a professional department. And yes, I am direct. Councilwoman Weston, when I ask for something, I am direct. Just
Okay.
like you are in this circle, you're direct. When you want to know something, you're direct.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to take a break before we move on to the rebuttal? Or do we want to just 5 minutes, or do you want to keep going? How about we keep going? You guys want to get up and get food, you can do so. If you need to go potty, you can do that as well, but we'll keep going with the rebuttal. Does that sound good? Santana, Youngman, do you have any rebuttal? Yes, sorry.
Hey, can we limit the rebuttal for a few minutes instead of a marathon?
I absolutely will. It's going to address specifically, and I will tell this to the complainants, rebuttals will be specifically limited to rebutting anything that was said in the vice president's testimony into providing information for that. Yes, Mr. Gibbons?
That was my comment, Your Honor. I know that this is informal, and I don't know why we're actually having rebuttals. We've heard their side, we've heard her side. We need to take care of this business.
Because complainants always have the ability to do a short rebuttal, and that's what we're gonna allow them to do, something short. I'm not gonna time it, I'll just cut them off and I'll tell them. All right, Santana, Youngman. You have a very short period of time and you're only to address something that you think is important to point out that the vice president stated.
Hello, Santana Youngman and Machapi. My rebuttal has to do with the messages that she did send me. Those are from her personal Facebook. That's how she contacted me because I didn't have a work phone. And it all got sent to my personal phone. And she just did block me the weekend before she fired me, which was a Monday. And the training, she did have us try to set one up, but that was for LNI, and I did get fired before that happened. And then the mileage she talked about was for the photos. She had us go take photos of homes, and she said she would write up a memo for us to get together for our mileage, because if you know, when we do our mileage, we have to put something with it showing that what we're doing before anybody will sign it or we take it upstairs. So we were waiting on that memo, which she never did, and then, like I said, she let me go. And on the Louise part where she was talking about her not doing her job, she did do her job. She was always signing people in. I just felt like she was always picking on her, like she didn't know what she was doing, but she did do her job. She was excellent at it, and she helped me a lot along the way. And on the protection order, we did go to victim services, and I did give you guys a copy of that earlier on her post that she made. And you can see it's the same photo as the photo of the message. And in that, she did make a post about us going to the victim services and to the tribal court. And I did want to make note that we did not let anybody know what we were doing that day, me and Duana. It was just between us and victim services. And she still somehow received this information. And I'm a little scared how she received that information of our whereabouts that day when we did not let anybody know. And she attained this information from I don't know who. And the protection order was dismissed, and because it was the wrong form, but we were pretty scared of what might have happened, and then this just kind of added to that about her knowing our whereabouts when I'd even tell my family about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Louise DeSursa. Oh, yeah, oh, sorry, we have one question.
I think, is this the one with the Facebook? Can you clarify, just all of these are from Darla, every single one? And
Yes.
yours have been omitted, or you never did reply to any of them?
Those were during Black Hills. I was up there and she was up there, and she was sending those pretty late at night. And I just didn't feel comfortable replying, so
Okay.
I didn't reply.
And then even the
Yeah, the highlighted-
one is
yeah.
even hers?
Yeah, I had to do that to show the time and the date, so
Oh.
it kind of highlighted it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Louise, did you want to say anything additional? Please make it quick and concise.
I just want to say that I did do all those messages, you know. She had me put them under her computer desk. There's a big old stack like that she did not look at or, you know, try to help. So I did do my job. We were nice to everybody that came in that place. We were respectful to them, told them have a good day. And her pity, I don't need her pity. I don't. She's lying, you guys. That's all.
Thank you. And Dewana Two Bulls, did you want to say anything in rebuttal?
Again, Council, my name is Pt2of2, former employee of Vice President Darla Black. Did want to bring up the protection order, which Santana did say was dismissed. Darla Black said it was dismissed only because it was on the wrong form. The judge did explain during the court proceedings that he felt it was necessary given the circumstances. And with the Facebook posts giving our whereabouts, with victim services, the only person that saw us up there was an advocate for Darla Black. And I feel that's where the information came from. I would consider that a HIPAA violation. You know, my rights were also, you know, they weren't upheld. I did not report. I did, actually, to some council members. However, retaliation, threats, intimidation, I just wanted to get away. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore, but I did. Radio show, she said it's paid for by donations, it's paid for by the tribe. I've submitted paperwork for that, to pay for that hour. She also sent me Facebook messages. However, since she deleted her Facebook, I cannot access those because I blocked her as soon as I was gone. I had nothing, I didn't want anything to do with her. So now I can't access those. Her bullying. She would, during meetings, when XB was having a meeting, she would say she didn't need to be there because the president was there. She did not want us to speak to any other offices because there was always something against us. I always felt a paranoia from her. If you look in her office, she also taped up the smoke detector in her office because she thought there was a camera in there. With President Bear Runner in regards to him, during the debates, she, on stage, asked him to come sit by her because she told me that she wanted to see how easy he was to boss around. So I think that's all I need to say. Thank you.
I do have one clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
You are the one who provided the information on the $1,000 and the $500. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall when you got that $1,000?
That same day.
Okay. And was that a work day?
It was.
And do you recall where you went to get that?
I believe it was at Kmart or Family Fair. I don't quite recall because I went to both places.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any? Oh, yeah. Do we have any questions? I'll start here.
Just kind of want to expand on that last statement by Ms. Langworthy. Did she talk about what that money was for, or what it was to be used for? Did she talk to you about having to turn it into the treasurer or to follow any processes, or was it just do me a favor?
Yes, she stated to me that she didn't want any money to come in her name. So could I get it in my name? And she wasn't with me. She did not have her ID. That text was sent because I was at the place to pick it up, and she sent that from her office. It's the computer screen.
Councilwoman Little Hawk Weston.
Mine is in the same lines of what Mr. Greenwald asked you. Did that come from Canada, like you said earlier?
If I recall correctly, it is Canada.
So just the receiving end was United States?
Correct.
That's what I'm thinking.
Correct.
So it did come from Canada?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilwoman Mills.
So can you recollect if that was for, like, information she testified to for her mother's medical expenses, or did it specify TP Razors? Do you recollect any of that information?
We never received any cash from TP Razors. TP Razors came in the form of tangible donations such as appliances and wood, but I did not receive any cash from TP Razors.
I'm speaking to regarding the $1,000 that we're talking about
Correct.
here.
TP Razors never sent a wire.
But you don't recollect any discussion as to what it was for?
No, ma'am.
Anything further? Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Black, I do have one question for you. When were you the chief of police here?
I think it might have been 2003, 2000. It was only a brief period.
Okay, for how long?
I was hired and then I think a month later.
And were you
Or
terminated?
a week later, yes.
Oh, a week later you were terminated?
It might have been, yeah.
Okay. And what was the reason for the termination?
I don't recall.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions before we go into closed session? Yes.
You know, with any public hearing, you know, we always have the public on the outside listening to us. And I think that a lot of times, a lot of things get on social media and Facebook, and, you know, sometimes things get, you know, said out of context. So I just want to leave something with the people, our Oyate out there. You know, I just want to say that sometimes, you know, we're put in tough positions to look at these things and to address what needs to get done. And I do want to say that, you know, when I mentioned earlier about the veterans, you know, I really do support the veterans, and I really do respect the veterans. And when I talked about how veterans carry themselves, they carry themselves in a respectful way. They're well disciplined. I think every military veteran can say that that's how they were taught. And so today, when they come back, that's how they carry themselves. And when I use my husband as an example, you know, he's that way. Gets up early. He's got appointments, got to be there on time. Examples to that, you know, never wants to be late on anything. So that's what I talked about, meaning, you know, when veterans carry themselves that way, they're real precise, they're just well disciplined, and that's in a good way, because then they themselves sometimes teach us something too, you know. So I just wanted to leave that word or leave that comment out to the public, you know, to all of our veterans out there. So don't misconstrue or take things out of context. You know, of course, this is a public hearing, so of course people are gonna say things, but, you know, I just wanted to leave that with the people. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to now go into a closed session, so I need everybody to clear the room, cameras to be turned off, and the radio to be turned off, and the only people to be left in the room are myself, council members, and the tribal attorney, Jennifer Bear Eagle. Okay, we're back. We have a full quorum. We're on the record in this case. We're out of closed session now. The ordinance number 4126 allows for any officer or any member of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council to be liable for impeachment for crimes, corrupt conduct, gross incompetency, malfeasance, or misdemeanor. Based upon the discussions, the Tribal Council believed that 3 of these potentially could be affected today. That's corrupt conduct, gross incompetency, and malfeasance. And for each of those, we'll have the tribal attorney read the definitions so that the audience can understand those 3.
Corrupt conduct, gross incompetency, and malfeasance are not defined in Ordinance 4126. So the council heard definitions from Black's Law Dictionary to help explain what those are and what those include. Corrupt conduct, the definition we heard was conduct that might or actually does adversely affect the honest and impartial exercise of official functions by a public official. The definition for incompetence we heard is the quality, state, or condition of being unable or unqualified to do something with the definition of gross, meaning something conspicuous by reason of size or other attention-getting qualities, obvious by reason of magnitude. Therefore, something that is grossly incompetent is something of a large size. And finally, malfeasance. The definition we heard was a wrongful, unlawful, or dishonest act, especially wrongdoing or misconduct by a public official. A related definition we heard was abuse of public office. Abuse of public office, a public servant's tortious or criminal use of governmental position for private gain.
Thank you. In making their judgment, the tribal council, the limitation is to remove the individual from office and/or disqualify that person from holding any office of trust or profit under the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. So that everyone is aware, in our discussions, the council only considered information that was in the complaints or that was evidence to support the information that was in the complaints. So any new information, such as the outstanding transit bill or the receipt of the $1,500, those were not considered today because they were not something that the vice president had knowledge of prior to today and had the ability to respond to. So those were not considered. So based upon this, the tribal council I'll accept any motion for either the removal, the non-removal, or the disqualification to hold office, or all of the above, whichever motion the tribal council feels is necessary. Yes, I apologize, Bear Killer.
Okay, so my motion is to accept the complaints and impeach Darla Black for the, that last one we said.
Malfeasance?
Malfeasance. That'll be my motion.
Okay, so the motion is to remove the vice president from office for malfeasance. Do I have a second on the motion? I have a second on the motion, and that is Valerie Janice. Madam Secretary, roll call vote.
Jim Minks,
Abstain.
Dwayne Yellowhawk,
Yes.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
No.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Sonia Little Hawk Weston, Jackie Sears,
Abstain.
Vincent Tulance,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valerie Janice,
Yes.
Valentina Mardanian,
Abstain.
Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
Yes.
Philip Goodcrow,
Yes.
Randy Laisbad,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
Yes.
Nakina Mills,
No.
Robin Tapio,
Yes.
Based upon the quorum that we have present today, a 2/3 vote would require 14 yes votes. The votes were 16 yes, 2 noes, and 3 abstains. So the vote is that the Vice President, Ms. Black, is removed from office as Vice President for malfeasance. The next question is whether the Tribal Council wants to entertain any motions for disqualification of Ms. Black to hold any future office of trust or profit under the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. If so, I would entertain a motion either way for yes or no. Yes.
I think that that might be already put in our Oglala Sioux Tribes election code. I think it might be in there already, where if you're impeached, you cannot run for office the following term, but I think we might need to double check that.
It
Yeah,
is in
it
there
is.
that you can't run. However, under this, it's disqualification to hold any office of trust or profit
Yeah,
under the
sure.
Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. So that's not an elected office. That's basically anything underneath you guys that you would control. So it's not an elected office that this allows for. So that's why I'm asking whether there's any motions for or against that as well. If not, then we'll. Hearing nothing on that, and then that's dropped. So that concludes the meeting for today. Thank you guys for allowing me to come, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for all being here. Yes.
Since we took this action today as a governing body, then I think we already have the process set up in our election code where the next runner-up is seated as the next vice president. I don't know who that is, but maybe that's something our secretary could look into.
Before we get into that, I am going to step out and let your president step back in because the hearing for the impeachment is now closed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sure, thanks. Thanks. Right.
Okay, I have, for those wondering, I do have the election code with me. Section 28 of the election code, Section 28V regarding vacancies in the office of vice president. Should a vacancy occur by reason of death, disability, resignation, disqualification, or removal from office of the vice president, the candidate receiving the next highest number of votes in the general election shall be sworn in as vice president. This provision applies to the position of district council vice president as well.
Councilman Greenwald? If my memory serves me correct, that was Tom Porbear, right? Do you need to entertain a motion for that, to seat him?
I will entertain that motion, Councilman.
I'll motion to seat Tom Porbear as the vice president to sit out the remainder of Ms. Black's term.
Okay, I got a motion on the floor to seat the next highest vote getter in this election, Mr. Thomas Porbear, by Councilman Greenwald, and second by Councilwoman Whitehorse. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Jim Meeks,
Yes.
Dwayne Yellowhawk,
Yes?
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Sonia Little Hawk Weston,
Ha.
Jackie Sears,
Oh, ha.
Vincent Tulance,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valerie Janice,
Yes.
Valentina Mardanian,
Abstain.
Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
Yes.
Philip Goodcrow,
Yes.
Randy Laisbed,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
Yes.
Nikina Mills,
Yes.
Robin Tapio,
Yes.
20 yes, 1 abstain, motion carried. We'll have the secretary notify Mr. Porbear and have him follow the process of getting sworn in at the courthouse. Correct. Okay, I got a motion to adjourn by Councilwoman Whitehorse, second by Councilman Greenwald. Councilwoman Bearkiller.
I guess, I have a concern and I was gonna make a motion to have our attorney and the Attorney General look at all the financial, the finances that came up in this meeting and, process and the violations and file charges against, Darla Black.
Okay, well, I will recognize that motion. Second by Councilwoman Tapio. Councilman Greenwald.
Just real quick, Lydia, I think you could probably maybe think about leaving that last part out, leave that up to the Attorney General if there's a violation of law, instead of saying charge them, yeah. Yeah.
No. Councilwoman Bearkiller, so can you restate that motion, please?
Okay, so my motion was to hand over all these financial documents that came in front of us, over to the attorney and the attorney general to investigate and to file criminal charges. If it's warranted. Yeah. Yeah, if it warrants.
If it warrants a.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, got a motion and a second on the floor. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Jim Minks, Dwayne Yellowhawk, Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
No.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Sonia Little Hawk Weston, Jackie Sears,
Abstain.
Vincent Tulance, Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valerie Janice,
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian,
No.
Ryan Jumping Eagle, Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson, Philip Goodcrow,
Yes.
Randy Laisbad,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
Yes.
Nikina Mills,
No.
Robin Tapio,
Yes.
Fourteen yes, 6 no, 1 abstain, motion carried. I do have a motion and a second to adjourn on the floor. But before I do, I'm gonna go ahead and give us the closing prayer before I run that vote.
Dwayne Yellowhawk,
Yes.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons, Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Sonia Little Hawk Weston, Jackie Sears, Vincent Tulance, Craig Dillon, Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valerie Janice, Valentina Merdanian, Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man, Chauncey Wilson, Philip Goodcrow, Randy Laisbad, Richard Greenwald, Nikina Mills, Robin Tapio,
Yes.
Yes. 17 yes, 1 no, 2 abstain, 1 not voting, motion carried, meeting adjourned at 17:32.